Hey everybody, I'm here with Luna. I'm Menor speaking. Luna, say hi.
Hello. Hope you
There
guys
we
are doing
go.
great.
That's a nice chipper attitude. It's a good way to start a stream. Uh, and this is going to be a new format for everybody, and that includes Luna here. Is that the format is we're going to have like 15-minute to 30-minute slots where we talk about a specific subject. And we were talking about Lotus Eaters actually just behind in the backstage. That's actually about what the format's going to be. So you'll hear people chime in. We'll have the chat here. If anyone chats anything, we'll respond to it. But otherwise, we'll be just back and forthing on a certain subject. And I'm going to do probably a more full video on this because this first subject, warrants a deep dive, I think. So this subject here, Luna, is that I think people, I don't trust people who use statistics anymore.
Well, what is the old saying? Lies, damn lies, and statistics.
That is correct. That is correct. And these are double damn Dutch lies, bad lies that you can do with statistics, right? Okay, so let's say I have 3 women, okay? And I'm trying to convince my friend to go out because there's 3 women that he can meet. Okay?
Okay.
At this venue. Let's say it's a bowling tournament. All right, we're gonna go bowling. My friend, his name is Buddy. Buddy's gonna come and we're gonna go bowling. There's 3 women there I want him to meet. I could say that one of those women has been divorced 6 times.
Oh.
And the other 2 have never been divorced at all. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Now, how does it make it sound when I tell my friend Buddy that the girls there are good? I mean, they have only averaged 2 divorces per each. I think my friend's gonna want to go.
I'm like sitting here thinking, wait, if he's gonna date one of these girls and they're divorced, wait, what? It's like that's a marriage broken. I don't know if you want to get wrapped up into that.
Well, that's what I'm saying is, though, I'm selling it, though. Let's say I could sell them it 2 ways, right? There's 3 women. One of them has had 6 divorces. The other 2 have had 0.
Okay, so my friend Buddy, single.
And I say, yeah, and I tell my friend Buddy that these women have had an average of 2 divorces per each. Yeah, nope. Does that sound like a date that Buddy would want to go on? Does Buddy want to go meet these women?
Nope.
No,
I wouldn't either.
Exactly. Because I've just phrased it, though, as they've had an average of 2 divorces between them. Really, just one of them has had 6 divorces. That's it.
Yeah.
But this is exactly the argument that most men make when they're in the manosphere, the red-pilled manosphere, is they will use averages. Let me tell you about anyone who says the average person or typical person is playing a Jedi mind trick on you. Because they're making you think they're talking about a real person, that someone is like this or even close to this. Okay? Yeah. The average is a myth. The average person is a myth. And I'll give you an illustrative example. For aircraft seats, for fighter jets, those have to be very ergonomic because those G's and the vibrations and everything, you can actually vibrate the ligaments and tendons to delaminate if things are not ergonomic properly. If there's too much compressional stress, and you're in a sortie that lasts for like an hour, you might have to cut that foot off when you get back because you have just cut off all the blood circuit. So ergonomics is really important.
Yep.
So the Air Force tried to make the average chair. This chair would be for the average airman. Okay, so you have your Gaussian distribution, right? And you're looking at the Gaussian distribution, and you're saying to yourself, right smack dab in the middle, I built the chair. That's the peak, right? That's the peak. There should be the peak number of people who can fit in that chair. That's the best chair design if you want to get a wide coverage. Luna, take a guess how many people fit in that chair.
Not as many as they would like.
It was 0. There was 0 people that fit in that freaking chair. Okay.
Yeah.
0. It wasn't 1. It wasn't a 5. Let's say there's 100 airmen. It wasn't 5 out of 100. It wasn't 1 out of 100. It was 0 out of 100 airmen would fit in that chair. Okay. So anybody who talked to me about an average woman, what the hell is even that? Okay. What is that? What is an average woman?
And the thing that drives me crazy about it is when you talk about relationships and things like that, you really have to get on a personal basis. You can't do the majority of women are like this. I'm pretty sure most guys don't even know what the majority of women think.
No, we don't. We barely know what one woman thinks.
Yeah.
We barely know what to buy our mom for her birthday. I mean, what? So we think that we know. The problem with statistics is it makes you think you know something. All right. So here's just a distribution. You know nothing, Jon Snow, right? From the defunct show of Game of Thrones. You know nothing. The statistics tell you absolutely nothing. I had one person who would tell me about, well, on average, there's a divorce after 8 years of marriage. And I said, there are people that have never gotten divorced. There are people that get divorced like within a couple months. You know, those people go to Vegas. All right.
Yeah.
What do their divorces have to do with you? What does the other person's marriage have to do with you? Because it's statistics allows you to say something without saying anything. It allows you to know something without knowing anything. So if you start using statistics and say, oh, this is the average wife, are women even real? I don't know. Women are like birds. Women go to the bathroom for like forever and they have to go change their batteries, I think, because they might not be real. What is the average woman? All right. What is the average flavor of ice cream that a woman wants? Okay. So that's the way. Is that the ice cream you're always going to buy women? Like I don't plan my budget based on the average male income in America. That would be, it's like probably $30,000 a year or something like that. Right. It's there in that ballpark, right?
And I think it's wiser for men to do things based on principle rather than by numbers and statistics. Like, I know some guys, that's just how their brain works. But I mean, like, for a marriage, you shouldn't be looking at it like, oh, 8 years. No, you should be looking at it on principle. I gave my word. This is until we both shall part. Unless there's an extreme, thing. But for the most part, it should be until death do we part. That was your word. And so
if you want to get married, you're doing it for the long hauls, but most guys just don't get married because they're not convinced it's going to work out. And if you look at the statistics, you could read like Rational Male or other stuff like that. I'm going to go and do a full review of that book and dive into it because I had some interaction with Rollo Tomasi on Twitter, and I was severely unimpressed with his statistical shenanigans. I looked at what he was using to justify one of his arguments, and I was like, that was a poo-poo argument. His argument was that if anybody here speaks Pig Latin, you'll know that you can use pornography pay to prolong your marriage, right? If you're having a marriage. And I was like, he used to defend. Yeah, exactly. I said to defend that when someone called him out on it, he said, "Did you know that 68% of pastors regularly use pornography pay?"
Oh God!
Like that has nothing to do with anything, bro. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
It's like, so I replied and said, okay, if I told you that students who are passing classes are using Ritalin and ADHD medications, Adderall and everything, because there's lots of them are using it, then you don't need to have physical activity. You could just prolong your academic career artificially using all these different drugs you put in your body. It's like, it's even if I agreed with him, that argument is terrible. It has nothing to do. And pastors aren't even the best. I don't even know what the statistics of pastors staying with their wives are. I have no idea. So he just grabbed a piece of information that he thought would make his argument, and maybe the other person was a Christian and he thought he could like use it as a cudgel. But I was like, if someone like I just watched a hamburger maker just take a giant steaming dump in a hamburger bun and serve it to somebody.
Oh,
and I'm like, I don't want to read the rest. I don't want your hamburgers, bro, because I just saw. I don't want to see your other statistics because I just saw that giant crap burger you just served out.
Yeah. Oh God, no.
And it's really easy to lie to people with statistics. And as a salesman, I know that you can sell anything that someone already wants because most of a sale is giving someone the rationalization they need to do what they wanted to do anyway. You were a salesman are just enablers. So he's just enabling. I think he's just enabling doomers. Like people are like, oh no, there's no hope. See the statistics. Statistics say there's no hope. 8 years.
Let me tell you what you want to believe already.
Yeah,
it's not helpful.
Yeah, exactly. They'll say it's like why does marriage statistics that include women in Miami and New York City and LA have anything to do with my marital choices in Tennessee? Right? It makes no sense. Like get a little bit more specific until eventually you have to get so specific that you're just considering that one person you're with.
And it is
So
better for your marriage to consider that one person you are with rather than the whole in general. Like,
yeah,
because there are a lot of awful men, there are a lot of awful women, and it really depends on what you're looking at. So,
yeah, and don't be a statistic, right? Like, don't be.
yeah.
I mean, if someone says, "Well, like, hey, on," I was talking to this one girl, and she was saying that, on average, this sort of thing doesn't work out, and I was like, "Well, don't be average." Like, did you go to school and say, well, like, I'm going to be average, and I'm going to make my life plans around being average? It's like no one does that. What they do is they look at what other people do and what seems to give people an edge, and they make a decision. Like, not everything has to be a double-blind, peer-reviewed study. Sometimes your intuition is going to do a better job. And
Well, in some ways, a lot of people don't want to be average, they want to be exceptional. And so you got to find out where you're exceptional and where your place is. So, like, why would you want to settle for average when you can be better?
it's really not that hard to be above average, right? It's like I think I went on a rant a little while ago when I was on a solo stream, and I said, if you want to be an above average male in terms of fitness, you don't have to like bench press 200 pounds or something like that. You don't have to. If you could touch your toes and jog for 15 minutes, and what else? Like, lift like a Lowe's bucket full of water, which is about 40 pounds. Just like lift it with one arm. You're probably like 95, 97 plus percentile in
Oh,
terms of
that's
physical
depressing.
fitness. Yeah,
That's real
just touch,
depressing.
like, can you touch your toes and jog for 15 minutes? Like,
Yes.
like even touching, like, it took me 2 years of stretching. So I was really out of shape. I was
Hmm.
250 pounds, working in a server rack farm, doing Linux admin, right? So I'm just a picture of unhealth. And
Yeah.
it took me 2 years with my wife. My wife helped me do this. I'm just practicing touching my toes. 2 years, and now I can put my palms on the floor. I was like, well, this wasn't very hard. I just had to do it every day for like 2
Yeah.
years.
It's the long jog. It's the doing it over that sort of duration and the discipline and the persistence to actually keep doing it. Like I actually was a former dancer. And
Oh,
so yeah, I did it for a long period of time and I realized after I quit that my health started to have I started having a lot of health issues. So I just went back into it, and once it becomes habit, you just, get in the rhythm
mm.
and it's a lot easier to do. So you have to sort of almost make it a part of your life, and it is one of those part of your life that I think is important and that more people should do, and it is better for you if you
Yeah,
like exercise and stuff. But yeah.
exactly. I was able to get up to 60 push-ups once. I got out of the habit, unfortunately, so I'm probably at like 45 now. But still, I started out only doing like 5.
Yeah.
Told you I was like way out of shape, and I just kept doing them every night before I'd go to bed. I was like, I'm not going to bed until I've done push-ups, and it would be 5, and then 10, and then 15, yada yada yada, until I did like a cool 60, and I was like, man, I feel great, and I did feel great. And it's just,
Yeah.
can you take a little bit of discomfort every day if it makes you better? And it's like, if you can't handle that, then yeah, ladies aren't going to find you attractive, because I think biologically, like, underlying, they know that if you're
Yeah.
not willing to take a little bit of pain to make a lot of bit of progress over a long period of time, that's pretty much what it takes to be a husband.
Yeah, and okay, so women do a lot of visual learning. So, like, when a woman looks at you and she's like, "No," there's a lot of information she's taking in, and it's usually not the information that guys are thinking. So,
I would love to hear what that analysis sounds like. I would love to hear women just, I just
okay,
put a picture of a dude up there and be like, let's pick him apart. I mean, another time, obviously, but
okay,
because I got to
okay.
go find pictures of men. I'm not going to do like a live Googling of what dudes look like. We're trying to stick
But
to a somewhat tight format here, but y'all go ahead.
yeah. Okay, I was gonna say real quick, there was one guy who was trying to court me, and he was, let's say, about, you know, 5'5". So he was shorter than me. He was balding and he was, plump, and he was said he was real shy. Like, he would not come up and talk to me, but he was,
Mm.
trying to chat me up online because he knew me, in real life. And I thought that was really weird and creepy, and I just want to leave me alone. And it
Which one
wasn't
of
that
those?
he
Which one of those
what
aspects did you find least attractive? Like, which
the
one of those things was the biggest impact on your lack of attraction for him?
the biggest impact was the fact that he would not talk to me in
Yes, I knew it'd be the
person.
shyness.
It would be
Man,
the shyness, and then he was expecting me to have pity on him and to be
uh,
the Yeah, and to be the person who pursues him, and I'm like, what part of you
Oh
would
my
you want me
gosh.
to pursue? Like, I don't understand.
Listen,
You do
my
not have
short
the
balding my
yeah,
short balding kings, what you got to do is you got to go in there swinging, all right? If you're short and you're balding, first off, shave the head.
yeah,
Shave the
shave
head,
the
just don't
head.
just embrace it. Second off, just watch a lot of Pitbull concerts and just see how he does it, okay? Just go in there
Yeah,
just like da da da,
Brad Pitt is
like
short. Like,
bust a
there's
move.
a
You could
bunch
be
of
short.
yeah, like Michael Jackson was pretty short too, and they are like, sex icons. So it's not the height, it's not that he's balding, he could shave his head. And then the next big thing was that he was overweight. And so he clearly
Right,
did not
right.
take care of himself.
Yep.
Like
So he's shy, doesn't take care of himself.
he had
Mhm.
kind of a ratty beard. And it's like of all those
Ugh.
qualities, it was the biggest one is that he did not have the courage to actually talk to me in person. He was just
Ah,
messaging me online, be like, please talk to me. I'm
the-
like, who are you and why are you,
yeah.
messaging me like this? This is just weird. Yeah.
That is, yeah. Don't be shy, dudes. It makes you seem like you're violent and weird and dangerous. It just sets off the. It's like it's got the snake reaction, right? Like if you see a
Yeah, it's
snake,
like
it's kind
you're
of like
gonna
just
follow me into an alley. I don't want you to do that. Like
yeah. Don't be yeah. Exactly, exactly. The guys try really hard. They do
I
try
know.
really hard, and they don't get very. And some of them don't go very far. And in the end, it doesn't even matter. I'm just kidding. Just doing Linkin Park lyrics. It doesn't really matter. You can just try again, right? Like it's not a big impact. So this is another bit of dating advice that I have for guys is just don't build your expectations up. Like assume failure, and then you're just gonna have fun with it. If you can have fun with failure, you can pretty much do anything in this world because nothing can stop you anymore. So the for guys, they get so discouraged because of the statistics, and the statistics are a lie. Like you'd think that the Air Force chair, which was built right here at the pinnacle, I don't know, my mouse is like really tiny here, but right at the pinnacle, you think that somebody would have fit in it, but nobody fit in it because a Gaussian distribution is meant to be over one single dimension. Right? It's
Yeah.
over one single dimension. If you looked at the actual, if you could visualize the blow up of a human being, what that looks like, if you just stratified them and parameterized them across all their different types of qualities, but even let's just say fitness, physical fitness, right? Mental health, sexual attractiveness. What else would be another one? I'm not even going to count finances. This is for a woman, right? So
Mhm.
finances don't matter. Maternal disposition. I'm going to call it that. All right, that's 4 dimensions. You can't even visualize a 4-dimensional graph. 3-dimensional graph is like a nice surface. Actually, a 3-dimensional graph would be even more complicated. 2-dimensional graph is a surface, right? So 1 dimension is a curve, 2 dimensions is a surface, 3 dimensions would be an object, I guess. A 4th dimension is not something that humans can visualize. Maybe you can introduce heat, like the color or something, like have a heat map on that. This is becoming a very complicated thing.
Yeah.
So people are using this. People are using a tool that was meant for 1 dimension, and they're using it for an n body problem, an n dimensional problem, and then they wonder why. And the models don't work. Like the first thing someone who uses statistics should know is the limitation of their tools. The
Yes.
average woman doesn't exist. She does
And
not
you're
exist.
talking about multivariate calculus, which if you've done that as an engineer, you know how complicated that can be. So
Exactly. And I ask guys this. I ask guys, okay, if you're gonna set your expectations based on the average woman, do you make your own personal budget based on the average salary? Do you make your personal housing decisions based on the average house that's being purchased, right? Like what would even the average house look like in your area that you'd purchase? So you take this house, which is much less complicated than a human being, and you can't even make an average of that. Like, oh, what's the average house in Baltimore? Like, well, there's ones that are really nice if you're up in Mount Washington. There's ones that are $6,000 crack houses. They're down in the crappy part, Sandtown,
yeah.
right? It's like even that average. So if I told you like average crime in a city, I was like, everybody's been to a city. They know there's nice parts of the city and there's bad parts of the city. So if you just says, well, I'm never gonna go to I don't know, what's a bad city? Like San Francisco seems like it's
Detroit.
universally bad, but let's take like
I was gonna
Washington
say
DC.
Detroit.
I'm going Washington DC because there's
Okay.
actually good. I don't know if there's good parts of Detroit. I'm not familiar with it.
Okay,
But I do
fair.
know that there's good parts of Washington, D.C. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's also really bad parts of Washington, D.C. And if I said, well, I'm never going to go to Washington, D.C. because there's crime there, be like, so you're not going to go to the Smithsonian? Like, people aren't getting mugged in the Smithsonian. It's like, yeah, and people aren't, and men aren't getting divorced when they're marrying a certain type of woman. There is a type of woman there that's not going to divorce you. How do we find her? That's kind of be your challenge, because men, there's a challenge you're going to have to face, and that's finding your one, right? People are individuals.
Yeah,
I
and
can tell you some indicators, but
I think
go ahead.
it's best for something like that to look at ancient wisdom. So things like the Bible. I know a lot of people are not going to like that, but there are books of wisdom in there that tell you what to look for and
And
looking for a potential mate.
and
Things like that.
I have a lot of also reluctance to send men to church to find a wife, because that's a minefield.
Yeah, that
Personal,
is. But I
yeah,
meant like the book itself. So like
exactly.
the ancient writers have a lot of
They knew,
wisdom,
yeah,
especially because we filtered it over time. Like you look at the Stoic works, it's like, of course, the best of the best is what is going to be kept around for this long, and you can really look at the ancient wisdom that's handed down, and it is handed down because it has worked, and you could see, okay, this is what will help me have a good life.
And one of the suggestions I actually do have that is solid, right? So the guys in the manosphere, they cite no fault divorce as being a big problem, right? Oh, she could just leave me and take half my stuff. That is,
Go to a
and then,
different
like,
state where there's no fault divorce.
yeah, exactly. So here's my screen over here. Here's a thing of how to file divorce in Tennessee. Let me see. Filing, if you do uncontested divorce, filing for contested divorce. I'm trying to find out where it was. I totally lost it. But
Yeah,
oh yeah, um, I will try and find it. But the fact is that the no fault, yeah. So here, requirements for a no fault divorce.
yeah,
It sounds fairly straightforward to simply state that you and your spouse don't get along, and that's true in most states with similar divorce grounds. However, in Tennessee law, there you go. Just zoom in. Tennessee law prohibits judges from granting an irreconcilable differences divorce unless you and your spouse have signed a divorce settlement. Um, that means that she's stuck with you until you agree that you can divorce, unless you do one of these things: adultery, cruel conduct, which means you'd probably have to have evidence. She'd have to have evidence that you're doing something cruel. Canceling her phone plan is not cruel.
yep.
Indignities like posting her nudes online. If you willfully or maliciously desert for a year, so if you just disappear, yeah, that sort of stuff. Trying to kill you, okay. Habitual
Yeah,
drunkenness, like
there
being,
are good reasons to divorce. It's not a
yeah,
thing that, like there's a reason we have divorce, but it is not supposed to be a good thing. And so if you just move to a state where no default divorce is not a thing, then you're good.
you have to just move to a based Christian state that doesn't tolerate degeneracy. Like
Yeah.
you cannot live in LA and then expect to get treatment other than what LA is okay with you getting, right? Like you're just gonna have that. So to guys who are concerned about divorce, I'd say, be a man. Okay, what's one of the greatest chads of history, of myth, is Odysseus. He went on a big odyssey. He went on a big trip. You guys can do the same thing. Move state. I was like, oh, I'm going to make less
It's
money in that state. I was like, well, I guess that money
it's
isn't
not
worth being
that
married for then, right?
bad. Like moving
No, it's not.
states in the United States is actually pretty easy. Like if you want to move countries in Europe, that's a whole different ball game. But like
Hmm.
the US makes it so easy. It's not like you have to
It's
change
really
currency
easy.
or, yeah. It's really not that bad.
And we're kind of, the great thing about Tennessee is we're unabashedly based. So we've just introduced a new law last year that here in the Tennessean. Let's zoom in and get this crap out of there. All right, so I'm gonna get past the usual journalist crap where they make a narrative, nobody cares. I guess they think it connects with the readers. I'd really just like to know what's going on. It probably just extends the word count.
Yeah.
All right, so this basically the story is guy signed the voluntary parental or what was it, paternity agreement,
Yeah.
and 5 years had passed, and then he realized the kid wasn't his. Right, so and basically they said, yeah, you're stuck with it. Because there used to be a 5-year statute of limitations on contesting fraudulent, it's called fraudulent. I don't know, birth. I don't know what it's called. It's just considered a form of fraud. but there's this 5-year statute of limitations. That is gone. Let me see what's that. 5. Yeah. So effective date HB 2699 as enacted removes the 5-year statute of limitations for challenging a voluntary acknowledgement of paternity on the basis of fraud, duress, or mistake of fact. Right. So if there's a mistake or whatever, this pretty much covers everything.
Yeah.
If you're being shotgunned into signing it, if you just made a mistake, like both of you just made a mistake, or if she's defrauding you, this is gone. The statute is gone. You could do it at any time. You could be 18 years old and you can pop out. There might even be a civil, a case there that you can sue for fraudulent amount of money. But this is a good protection because what this effectively does is it makes it so. Let's see. There's another part of the bill, but pretty much you have to get a paternity test. Yeah. So the signer must provide results of DNA to vital records. So in order for the birth certificate to be officially validated, the signer must provide the results of a DNA test to vital records.
Okay.
So,
that's interesting.
Yeah. This is what I got locked out of my Twitter account for because I said that here in Tennessee, we don't tolerate dumb Orhays doing dumb Orhay it-shays. We are unabashedly totally based as a state. I don't know if we allow gay marriage anymore. I saw someone on Reddit complaining about that we've kind of neutered the Marriage Equality Act here.
I don't really know what the status is in my state. I assumed it's based, but you never know because I'm in Bama, so I'm like one state south of you.
Yeah, so unfortunately, like you get the cities full of people that vote a certain way and they screw everything up. However, we've completely neutered Nashville. We've cut them off the nuts.
Good.
I think we gerrymandered them really hard. So
good because like all sorts of Californians and people have been flooding into the red states, and I don't know how I feel about that. It's been really bad in where I live, but anyway, continue.
Yeah, people get concerned about that, but I've actually not seen it manifest into a larger amount of registrations of one party or another. In fact, I'd say it's mostly the indigenous party is getting more people. Because I think Ben Shapiro said there are more Republicans in California than there are in many other states. It's just that California is a big state. So it's like, well, if all the Republicans leave, which are probably the ones who left.
Yeah.
Honestly. So it's like, no, we're basically all leaving Sodom and leaving them to their own devices and then strengthening our hold. So I'm very optimistic, actually. So if anybody has data counter to that, I'm open to seeing it, of course.
I've seen it both ways, but there's a lot of economic opportunities where I live. In fact, we're getting a bunch of... So the government decided that they didn't want to depoliticize a lot of organizations, so they keep moving it to where I live. And I'm like, I don't want the FBI headquarters being down here. They were going to move Space Force down here too, and a bunch of other stuff. And I'm just like, please don't. We already have an arsenal in NASA.
Yeah.
Like,
that'd be interesting subject for another time is the different migrations. But the funny thing is this article here, this is the Tennessean, which I'm not a huge fan of, but they're reporting the news apparently. So until I find out they're overtly lying, then whatever. People who were trying to kill this bill or tried to kill this bill was the Tennessee Department of Human Services was trying to fight this thing. Was why? Because proving paternity is a good thing, right? Nice to know that everyone's a happy family. Because there's $52 million in funding it receives from the federal government for its child support enforcement programs. So the federal government pretty much provides a massive purse to not force states, but to coerce states into doing what the federal government wants it to do. It's very schemy. It's very gross.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
The Tennessee don't need their money. I got neighbors that live in like tents in the forest. We're okay being broke. It's like we don't need the line to go up. Line can stay flat. Line can go down. We don't care. So we just told them to blow up. Kiss our butts. So it's a big problem. It's a good day for men. Tennessee's a great state for marriage, and so far I have found that people here. By the way, the government here really does not want you to get divorced. Like the judge will, depending on who your judge is, a lot of them will intervene and say, okay, I'm not signing this writ of divorce until you've gone to marriage counseling.
Good.
Like, let me see a good faith effort that you're trying to fix this.
I'm very of a firm belief that you should not be getting divorced unless there's extreme circumstance, like, you know, them trying to kill you.
And like, I like the idea that, and not everyone's going to see it that way. Obviously, the people who are getting divorced don't see it that way. And what I do endorse, since I can't make them see it that way, I like using law to coerce behavior. So what is a law? If you really look at what a law is, it is a law is stated violence to enforce a social norm. That's what it is. Okay. So if I have a law against speeding, there is a certain amount of force that a cop is going to undergo to stop you from speeding. He's going to pull you over. If you don't pull over, we're going to escalate up the chain until there's a whooping, right?
Yeah.
Until like the ultimate amount of force is lethal force. But I like the law using violence to coerce people to being married, and that's the great thing about the United States. That's not. I don't consider that tyrannical at all, because you just can move your state, go away, just get out, goodbye, bye, go get divorced, go be a weird divorced person in LA or something. Like I like the culture of Tennessee, because when I walk up to a pretty girl, she says hi and smiles at me, because she knows that the government, in law, if I marry her or get her knocked up, is going to be at my door making sure that I am a father and a husband. Okay.
Good.
Exactly. Like, that was wrong with that? Oh, I don't like that. It's not very libertarian. It's like, exactly. I don't want to be a libertarian because I don't want my culture to just degrade and erode completely. I think marriage is important, and I think we should enforce it. And if you don't think so, leave my state. Goodbye. So.
Yeah. There's a lot of that in how the government is enforcing things too. It's like, also the fact that we're allowed to have guns a lot easier than in a lot of other states like New York and California.
Oh yeah, I could keep a gun in my car door, actually, in the little pocket in the car door.
It's
I keep a loaded gun in there.
Important for women, I think. Like Annie Oakley, my thing is that like women, we are very much weaker than men, and a lot of women over here understand that. So we have to have the great equalizer, which is, you know, nice gun.
And if every woman was armed, every man would be keeping himself in check. Just about. You'd only have the people who are properly delusional. There's nothing you can do about those guys. They're always going to break the law because they don't have. They're not in touch with reality. But whenever I talk to someone who's from the UK, I tell them, like, there's a reason we don't have ape ray gangs in America, because a dad would just show up with a Barrett, like he'd show up with, what's the shotgun? Is it M4, Benelli M4, like the one from John Wick? That's the one the Marines use for breaching. It's technically a war crime to use the shotgun on people, but sometimes people just look like doors. So what are you going to do, right? I thought it was a door. Anyways, like, okay, so the reason why I want it to be totalitarian in this way is that when I do talk to that girl, she knows that marriage means something in this state, which means that she trusts me more. It's the same reason why if all women had guns, they would probably be more willing to trust men. It's easier to get married in a place that makes it harder to get divorced. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah. There's a lot to a woman to being secure. That means a lot to us, because we understand that we are weaker and that we are more likely to get victimized. And so, security is big in the mind of a woman. So guns are nice. Good men are better. And true that, especially a good man with a good gun, right? Yeah.
And speaking of things that are on women's minds, you wanted to talk about this. I wanted to hear about this. This is very strange to me. What about women's sexual fantasies here? All right, I didn't use the pig Latin. Actual say anticipate. I learned pig Latin to impress a girl. She was in there. She was in. Just quick aside. This is what men will do, by the way, to impress women. Is she was really good with pig Latin, and I had a moment where she was no longer a woman to me, and she was just a person. And I thought to myself, that was really impressive what she just did. It's like if a girl just did a wheelie and just jumped the jump on her bicycle in front of you. She'd stop being a girl for a second and be like, well, that was really cool what she did. Oh yeah, she is a girl. Turns out, that's by the way, if you could get us guys into that state, that's how we earn. that's the state which we respect you. It's like you're not even a
That's
woman anymore.
That's where women want to be, actually. So what I was going to talk about is something that, well, it started with Connor from the Lotus Eaters. He had said something that I thought was really dumb, which was something to the effect of women have these gay fantasies or write, male bondings, male friendships into gay relationships because they just hate men and are trying to stigmatize men
Oh
relationships.
yeah.
And then I think you said something similar, and I was like, no, that is completely wrong. Like, how did you reach that conclusion? And they were saying something like, well, women don't have women friendships the same way men have men friendships. And obviously that's true. Women have very different relationships to other women than men have to each other. Like, women do not sit there and fight each other and then bond over it afterwards and then become best bros. Like, that is not how women work.
It'd be pretty hot if they did, but unfortunately they don't.
Especially if there's mud, right?
Something like that. Some kind of viscous or medium. Go ahead.
Okay, so I was like, all right, to explain this for the men out there, women do not fantasize about men having these gay relationships because they hate men. It's the opposite. It's that we like men and we like these relationships. So I was kind of going through this whole rigmarole trying to write down exactly how this works so that men can understand it. And I put a lot of time and effort into this.
Maybe this is just wishful thinking then on our part, because we would rather not. You're asking like, why did you guys reach that conclusion? I was like, because we really don't want to reach this other conclusion. Maybe, I don't know.
Okay, so first I have to talk about female porn, which is not visual, it's written. So, like, those
I've heard this.
Yeah, stupid romance novels and why women read that. It is the equivalent to our porn. It is like an emotional aesthetic draw is what women look for. We don't look for the big boobs like men do.
You just gave me an idea. This is an amazing idea. I could make millions of dollars off this. Oh my god.
Oh boy.
What if there's a service I'd sign up that a lady could sign up for, and there would be a handcrafted, handwritten letter in beautiful calligraphy from a secret admirer, and it would just come in every week and just be beautiful stuff. And what you do is you like give them a link to your social media so they can, or send them some pictures, and they just send you flowery notes
women
and letters.
Would be all over that. Like, seriously, women would be all over that.
Oh, can make so much money being a porn dealer for women. It's basically, yeah. Women consume a lot of porn, by the way. So anybody who doesn't know, my definition of porn is any artificial / synthetic stimulation of a visceral urge, because that synthetic / artificial thing supplants and exaggerates the desire that urge brings, which then spoils you for the actual thing.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, and so women porn is very much more of a smut thing. And that's why a lot of fan fiction is terrible and also of this quality. This is what women
Audrey,
are.
as it is.
Yeah. So, now, first, before we can address the gay men, we have to address the woman problem in media. Because
before we get to the gay men, we must address the woman problem.
Yeah, because if you think about it, it's a substitute for something else. Like, the woman would rather the man and the woman relationship be a thing, but obviously that is not the first go-to. The first go-to is man on man. If you think about it, like, seriously, why is it not a woman and man getting together? And it's because in media, if you think about it, a lot of the woman-men relationships suck.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It would be better off to see men, like, because that's actually the example of healthy relationships that women tend to see, is just men with other men.
Yes, exactly.
Being bros, just broing out. Like, we're digging the hole on the beach, and then what we do in that hole is entirely our business. Maybe that's something you girls can think about. Ooh, that sounds fun. I'll write it, put it in my Tumblr. I see what you're doing.
This. Yeah, so
our beach hole. That beach hole is none of your business. It's sandy. There's sand everywhere. It gets everywhere. It's, of course.
So, like, if you
that's
look
why we're digging it.
Yeah, if you look at a lot of media, you look at all these like, look at all the different women that are in media. You have like the beautiful woman who's a pair of boobs, and at best she has like an aesthetic. At
And
worst,
women don't.
she's just a pair. Yeah.
And women
at worst,
don't
she's
self-replace
like
like men do. Like men can look at a man and be like, I'm now going to empathize myself into that man's skin for a minute. So when Kyle Reeves is running away from the Terminator, that's us. When the girl is falling in love with the hero, that's us.
No,
do women feel that way when they watch media, when they see a girl boss or some other lady in lady hero? Do you guys do that empathetic replacement?
A little bit, but okay, here's something you have to understand with that. A lot of the women characters we hate, like the girl boss, the Mary Sue, things like that.
Oh, then the modern ones you hate. Yeah. So
yeah,
if
like
you're watching Alien or something, would you?
What?
If you were like watching Alien with Ridley, the
Ridley
main.
is fine. Ridley is a different person. Like,
so you'd self-replace into Ridley though. Could you do that? Would you do that? Okay.
But for like, let's say the new She-Hulk or the new He-Man with what's her face? I can't even remember her name.
Yeah, those shows make me identify as someone who wants to drink a lot of bleach. That's what I.
Yeah, or Ray. Like, these are terrible female characters, and a lot of them are written by, self-insert women. Like, women who do not make a character, they just want to be themselves in a fantasy. Oh, it's bad. So, a lot of these female characters suck.
Yep.
And a lot of women do not like them. The dynamics are not very good. Usually they're pushed to the back burner. Half the time you're like, who even is this person? She's just there to, be the love interest, and there's nothing else.
I see. So that's the two extremes. You get a character that is just a pair of boobs, it's just love interest. And then you get girl boss, which is just poison that you hate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does make sense. You ladies don't really have a whole lot of characters that you can cling on to in fiction. Okay.
And so there's also the thing of a lot of tropes, like the women spending too much time trying to prove themselves to be among the men. That's trope.
Really annoying to us guys. We find that really annoying.
And it's too much of a distraction. It's not really building up any characters. It's like we've seen it 100 times before. It's obnoxious. And the women's strengths are really not portrayed in a very, realistic term. Like, if you look at a bunch of stories with action, the women have to be as strong as the men, and the women are not as strong as the men. And so you have to find some other place for the woman that makes sense within the story. And usually it's as a side character, like a healer, or like, let's say One Piece, where you got Nami, the navigator. She's not a big fighter, but she makes sure that the pirates get where they're going.
So because ladies just don't seem to have the media that puts them in it, women more pay attention to the man, and maybe what are they like self-insert as the men sometimes too, or like want to
sort of because the relationships between the men are a lot more interesting, a lot more dynamic, because they have to be, because they are not, shoehorning this romantic subplot or something of that nature. Right. They're actually focusing on building the relationship between the two people. And so you learn a lot more between, let's say, Watson and Sherlock than you do about Watson and his wife, whatever her name was. Because
that's funny, because that's what Watson calls her too. I'm just kidding. That'd be amazing. Whatever.
But like,
what's her face?
This is the problem. Like, so if you look at something like Lord of the Rings, the women are not in the forefront because it is not necessary for the women to be in the forefront. And it's written that way on purpose.
If a woman was in the forefront, you'd be asking, why aren't the men helping her?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you do. Yeah.
It's a lot about war, and it's about this great journey. And so that's why there's such a big emphasis on the relationships between the people, which are usually all men. And someone like Gladriel is in the background, someone like Arwen, and Rosie. Rosie is Sam's love interest. And so Rosie's at the beginning. Sam kind of wants to get with her, but he's too shy. And then towards the end, he's thinking about Rosie, and he's like, if I would have married somebody, it would have been her. And then after the whole adventure, he goes back and marries Rosie. And then
it's not even shown. It's like, of course, duh.
Yeah, duh. And so some people take offense to this, because it's sort of like you see the relationship between him and Frodo, but you don't know Rosie. She's just kind of
Nah,
someone
that's true.
that's
That's true.
referenced, and so
So
that's
okay, so
where you see the bond between people, and that makes more sense to a woman is, the bonds between people that we see and not some person we don't know.
okay, so I think I'm getting it. Actually, this is more sensible than I thought it was going to be. I thought this was going to be total degenerate, and I was going to have to just put on a Pope hat and shout. But no, actually, it's you ladies tend to be titillated by a narrative, a
Yeah,
story,
a story,
character
and
development.
yeah, and a lot of that's just not in, like a lot of romances are really awful and stupid. Like think of all the what are the movies? The really bad like Hallmark movies, I think it is. That
Oh yeah,
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 no guy wants to see, and half the time I don't want to see those either. They're trash. But it's you want to see the nice dynamic, but all the stories suck. And so that's why a lot of romance is romantic subplots, which a lot of people also do not like. It's like you're taking away from the story to portray your smooching.
yeah. So
Like,
it sounds like it's just that ladies. I mean, I'm trying to think of ladies' stories that would be super gripping, but it's kind of hard to
okay,
overtake the romanticism of men at war going and taking over. Like you can't. There's not really a female narrative that's that gripping, right?
well, yeah,
I'm
I
trying to
try to
find
think of
female
some, but
narratives.
okay,
I'm trying
so
to. I'm either yeah. Sorry. Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. I was gonna say I've tried really hard to think of some good female narratives, and I did find a few, but it's really sparse.
And
So,
they're
like,
not going to
probably
be as exciting as the male. Like on it, there's
yeah,
nothing more
definitely not.
exciting than making it past the German machine guns onto the beach, saving French maids from the burning barn, and
Yeah,
jumping onto a tank and then going pistol to pistol with a German officer.
yeah.
And
It's gonna be like a slow burn. It's gonna be something like politics or something like is the best you can do because if you think about from the women's station, like we can't do all those great things men have done, and that is not our place either. It's not where we feel comfortable.
yeah, it's
And
almost like
so
there's a Bond envy. Like there's
yeah,
a yeah. Oh
is we
wow.
want
Yeah.
that bond, and so we see the bond between the guys, and of course, to our brains, it's like, well, of course they would get together because
But
they
then when you
share
see
this
that,
bond, but
yeah,
there's no such bond between the women. The women bond is lacking. We don't see that.
and the thing is when you do portray that in fiction and just do a female replacement, it's no longer believable. So
Yeah,
even if you had a story, yeah, so I guess the story that a woman would want would be the story that would realistically portray women's nature while also forming an extremely strong bond. And that's the thing where real life and fiction just do not work sometimes, is
yeah,
that story is a lifetime story. Like you probably the
yeah,
best thing you'd have is if there was a take the story of like Forrest Gump
yeah.
and
I
have
was gonna give
Forrest
you
be a woman instead, and she is like going through her whole life on this like pursuing this kind of wayward man who is finds his way and finally gets peace. That would probably be because Forrest Gump is it's not exciting because he's in Vietnam. It's exciting because his friend Bubba is in trouble and he saved Bubba. Now the
yeah.
Vietnam is a cool setting, got a sweet soundtrack,
Mhm.
right? But that's the thing you remember is Bubba like being left behind. But then like Forrest making good. It's all the rest of it's all that action stuff, that masculine stuff is actually just set dressing for a story about character development.
Yeah, and so that's what a lot of women want. So, that and it's a lot more intriguing within men's stories than it is between a man and a woman a lot of times. So,
Yeah.
I did find a couple of exceptions.
Oh, really?
And some of
Okay.
them will surprise you. Like,
All right.
there's not so big exceptions like, the 1995 Colin Firth Pride and Prejudice. I don't know if you've seen that
Oh,
or not. It
yeah.
was a TV series, and it was a romance, but a lot of it was the nature of how she lived her life. You could see the relationship between her, her father, her
Mm.
family, and then also her relationship with him because she doesn't get together with him from the get-go. She hates him from the start because he's rude to her.
Oh, yeah, we all do. We all do read that book in high school.
Yeah,
Was it
yeah.
did it stay
So
pretty close to the book?
that's why that one I singled out in particular because it was really close to the book and it was really well done.
That's good.
A lot of the Pride and Prejudices are not. That one is actually really good. The one with Colin Firth in it. Um,
Yeah.
Another one that's gonna was the most surprising to me was Legally Blonde.
Oh, that's a great movie. I love Legally
I
Blonde.
know it's like
Uh
if you want to understand a woman and what she thinks, watch that movie.
That's
Like,
too funny.
seriously, if you think about it, because what happens is in the plot is it starts out she thinks she's going to get married to this guy, and of course, when she thinks he's gonna propose, he dumps her, and then you find out he was actually with this other woman. So what's the first thing she does? Is she decides, well, maybe he's dumping me because he wants a serious woman, so I'll just get into the same school as him. So she does,
Right,
and then
right.
he finds out she finds out he's already with this other girl. And so the next thing she decides to do is to steal him back. And of course, that's not going to happen. And she kind of has this click of where she realizes, I'm never going to be good enough for you, am I? And then she goes into woman scorned mode where she decides, I'm going to not just, beat you. I'm going to be the best because screw you. I'm going to,
It's not, it's an ignoble start to what ends up becoming a noble thing because she realizes that she can use her power now
to do good.
For good. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
I'm taking the dog, dumbass. That was the best scene.
Oh yeah. And she realizes that by doing this, not only is she proving herself to herself and to other people, that she can do a great amount of good because of her empathy, because of who she is. She doesn't actually, question or change much of who she is other than becoming a lawyer. But a lot of that was because screw you. But she starts off as a Barbie. She ends as a Barbie. She doesn't, change herself.
There's nothing wrong with being a Barbie. There's
nothing wrong with being a Barbie. So, like, that is an excellent movie to understand women.
Okay.
So
it's good to know.
And it's not what people expect, and it's an actual good movie.
No, now you mention it, that is actually, it's enjoyable. And the thing is, the female narrative, a good female centric narrative is actually compelling for us guys to watch too. We don't mind it. It's just all this. It's the thing is, we know when we're watching women porn. Yeah. We know when we're watching women porn, and it's like, ew, why'd you?
Crap.
Yeah, exactly. Because, sorry, porn doesn't have to be very high quality. It also doesn't. Yeah. It also is overindulgent in things that are not resonant for us as guys. But also, it's just, we know, we can see it for what it is. We know it's exploitative. Like,
yeah, and a lot of women don't like it either. Like, they're trying to bank off something, and after a certain point, women are just had enough of it, and that's why it's turned that way. And so,
a lot of romantic comedies coming out.
Yeah, and so sort of where I wanted to go with this about why it's gotten so crazy is, part of it is the Tumblr thing. It is the LGBTQ plus pressure. But it is also, there are a lot of women who are addicted to gay porn. And it started off with that idea. It started off with we want that realistic bonding. And as soon as people started realizing they can get this from the gay porn, then they got addicted to it. So, like, and there's a couple things that are added to that. So there's a whole tension about whether they will get together or not. So in a lot of female romances, it's kind of expected they're going to get together. But in Man on Man, there's a societal pressure of this is forbidden, which adds to the whole taboo, like, ooh, dangerous. Of course. Yeah. And
ladies love, by the way, and I push this as well. So I have a thesis that I'm going to have to write up at some point because I feel very strongly about it.
Yeah.
It is one of the most exaggerated and hyperbolic things I've ever said on my Twitter, but it's also one that I hold 100% true to my heart, because I don't think women should hold any position of moral authority ever, except over just the home. Like, it just doesn't scale, because women like pushing boundaries and breaking the rules for love and passion, whereas men would be like, it is my duty, like, even though I'm in love with the princess, it is my duty to be her guard and snuff that love right out. It's like, we're not going to be in love. It would be the heroic.
We're getting Lancelot on here, are we? Yeah. It really depends on the woman, because most of the time, yeah, you are correct.
Yeah, it's you'd have to be pretty stodgy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's hard for ladies to resist that too, that sort of forbidden love thing, because it makes the love feel even more
passionate and more like emotionally bonded, like, and it goes to that tension, that emotion, and the things that women want. Women want to be loved, and it's like, how much do you love me? If you're this is where I come from, this angle here that's so extreme, is because you women get off on morally
making us men peel away from our morals, is what that is. Like we have a moral duty to do X and be XYZ, and then women are like, oh, but it's so romantic if I could make him violate the things he's sworn to uphold for love. It's like
Like if
yeah,
a wise woman will not do that, but in the society that we live in, yeah.
why is that? When do women become wise? Because men don't become wise until we're like 35, 40, and we're so it's like
say.
I don't know if women are really wise
A
that
lot of
young.
women
And the
are
problem
not
is that's
learning
when all
to
the
be
seduction.
wise.
Those are your prime seduction years, are when you're not wise. So like women's seductive. Maybe it's not so much the difference then of like, oh, women are bad. And I don't think women are bad. I just think women get off on morally compromising men.
Yeah, and there's a lot of wisdom that was handed down to women and that women have just lost. And because we have lost it, unlike men who have learned these hard lessons, it will probably be too late by the women learn theirs, as we were
when
talking
men
about
learn
earlier.
consequences come at men pretty fast. Like the first time you try to do some dumb stunt, and an adult tells you, hey, don't do that, which is why the whole dad trope of like dad will just look at you and say like, wouldn't do that if I were you, son, and doesn't do it and doesn't stop the son at all. That's because that's a trust lesson of okay, if you want to defy me, son, look what happens. Okay, we're gonna go to the hospital. Let's go ahead and let me rip up a curtain, cut a piece of curtain off and plug it in the wound, and we're gonna go to the hospital. See, this is what happens when you don't listen to dad. Your bones are sticking out now. And the son is like, I will never defy my father again. This is the worst pain in the world. Whereas women are like 20 years later they'll regret it. I don't know. That's regret.
Yeah, because the stupid thing women do are a lot of relationship stupid things, because that's where we kind of are experts in, is sort of the relationships and the being sneaky about different dynamics of people. And part of that is we test the waters with that. So there's a lot more damage to be done with the relationships that can't be repaired.
Yeah, it's a little bit like dealing with, and so this is again for the audience who reads this on playback or whatever. I'm a benevolent misogynist, but just having eyeballs and being willing to accept what I see with them has pushed me to be a misogynist. I do think a lot of women have very childlike qualities, and one of them is pushing boundaries just for the sake of pushing boundaries. They want to see how weak you are, which is good for them to know. Like that's a good evolutionary trait. It's like, let's find out how weak this guy is. Does he just compromise himself over nothing? Okay, does he just never compromise ever? Like those are two good data points to have, right? You gotta want to be somewhere in the middle. In this way, women actually are like little pixie devils that force us to have balance, right? Yeah. Like some like she's gonna pick at you if you don't do any work, and she's gonna pick at you if you do too much work, which makes us men feel like women are insatiable. But the fact is, they're just constantly. It's like the same way that your sensei in the dojo is insatiable. He's always testing you. She's always going to test you. So yeah, women like to push boundaries. We know.
Yeah. But
I think a lot of guys mistake that for maliciousness and they get bitter about it. But like, guys, come on, this is ladies being ladies. Let them do it. It's fine.
Yeah. It's very different. Like the things we learn are very different, and to be wise as a woman, it's a lot harder to do, and it takes a lot more mistakes and a lot more breaking bonds and having real life hurt. And a lot of that is also part of our empathy too. So we're very empathetic creatures to our demise sometimes. But
I think in that way, women ought to learn from each other. If you guys are that empathetic, I mean, when we guys we see another guy get hit in the junk, right? Which is, first off, it is funny, but at first we're all going to cringe because we all feel it along with him. That's empathy, right? And we don't feel that with a lot of other stuff that other men do. Like sometimes we laugh at men for being like, let's say there's a dude crying on YouTube because his wife took his kid and left him and is taking half his money and he's got to like live in an apartment. Probably that guy's going to face a ton of ridicule, not a lot of empathy, right? But we're kind of part of that problem too, is we don't always learn from that guy's mistakes. Sometimes we'll see a car wiped out on the shoulder of the highway and we'll say like, it can never be me. What a loser. And then you keep driving and then you start hydroplaning, and you're like, oh no. Whereas ladies, that's why my wife I would consider my wife to be extremely wise. Extremely wise. She's never been with anybody before me. I'm her only, boyfriend, then eventually husband. She knew exactly what she wanted. She told me exactly what she wanted. She kind of set down the rules of like, this is what it's going to be, and if you don't like it, leave. And I was like, I like that. I like that. Just tell me what you want. Simple mode. If it's I'd rather have a hard task that's just given to me explicitly than a bunch of easy tasks that I could just miss completely. So she was wise, and the way she was wise was she just watched her friends become horribly upset about boys and listened to all the complaining, and she was like, that's not going to be me. I was like, all right.
And some of that wisdom is handed down. And I think the wisdom handed down is lost. And I think some of it has to be, you just have to sit there and look and be like, I don't want to live my life like that.
I do think that women are facing an empathy gap, though, these days. Like, maybe they used to be more empathetic than they are, but I don't feel like women are...
it used to be, and now it's a lot harder. Because, number one, there's a lot more competition between women and, trying to figure potential mates. There's a lot more bitterness and issues. And I hate to say it, birth control is a huge factor. Birth control has driven women mad.
How much do you know about birth control and hormones? And do you know that from like secondhand experience or even firsthand experience, if you're willing to divulge that? Because that's a really interesting subject. And I don't hear a lot about anecdotes of that. And an interesting subject for another time, because I don't want this to go on all night.
Okay, that's fair.
We're sort of like chit chat mode where it's just like off topic, just hang out and talk. But that one is like a serious subject that's like, that'd be really interesting to dive into.
I know about it from a lot of different angles. So like, so my grandmother had passed away because she had an injury and they gave her estrogen, and then it caused her to develop cancer. And they realized that this was a family thing, that if you take these sort of artificial hormones, it would cause cancers and tumors. And it was not just my grandmother, it was a couple people in the family that happened to. And so they looked at me and said, you can never be on birth control. And so I was never on it. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And I was never on it. And then I started to realize that people who got on it, the different attitudes they started to have. But the thing is women get on birth control so early that they can't realize the pattern difference. So especially because you're going through puberty. And so then I, of course, went into chemical engineering. And I started learning the side effects and what it does. And I started reading some of the studies, and I'm like, this is something that has to be banned. This cannot be allowed. And it started having a bunch of consequences. So like, they talk about estrogen being in the water. That's changing how men are physically. And they talk about women becoming sterile, and also the social problems of women having no consequences of sleeping around and doing a bunch of really stupid stuff.
Psychological damage from that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so a lot of the wisdom of women of, don't have sex before marriage is tossed out the window, and women don't have to adhere to a lot of the wisdom that was handed down, which is part of why it's lost.
Well, and it allowed sex to flood the market.
Yes. And so, men were not
going
to police that. Yeah, men were not going to police that because that's beneficial to them. And then
it's also we can't. Like every time we try to police women's sex lives, they freak the F out like really hard, even if it's the dad. Yeah. Like you see this in fiction and in real life all the time. I was like, oh, my dad told me not to sleep around, and he gave me the talk, so I'm going to go sleep around extra hard because ladies like to push boundaries. So it's like, as soon as we enact the boundary, like ladies will say like, you guys could have stopped us. It's like, if we said anything, would you have stopped? Like, no. So we're not. So why would we want to just piss off? Like, who's going to be the guy in the room who stands up and then gets rocks thrown at him for being the one who says it? Like, a lot of us guys are thinking it.
It has to be the women that police other women. And because all women are doing this, and it kind of makes women crazy. And so like, where is the old-fashioned lady that used to be talked about? Well, she is no more, or she is very rare. And a lot of that is a side effect of the birth control, and it needs to be stopped, especially the hormonal birth control.
The thing is, I'm not convinced that young people would even listen.
Yeah.
Like, what is one thing that a young person listens to it? People keep saying, oh, no, a grown-up never told me this. It's like, what is one thing that like a grown up is told, and I'm going to say like a typical. So we're going to talk about like the preponderance of the youth.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them don't really listen to their parents. I'd venture to say if their parents told them to do something, like I have no data to back this up, right? Because there isn't like a survey that pays attention to every time a parent asks the kid to take the trash out. Like what percentage of time does the kid actually do it, and how long does it take, right?
Yeah, we're not going to have that data, but
Yeah,
it's a common understanding that this is how teenagers are.
Yes. So if the kid can get the birth control without their parent and be part of that social group, which is also like teenagers want to join the predominant social group, they're going to do it, and they're going to enjoy it, and they're going to reap the consequences. And because it's available, there's nothing you can do, which is why I'm a big fan of being a totalitarian. I would just ban it in my state. I would just ban it.
There's other stuff that a lot of men don't know about the birth control too, that is also a big thing to consider. So, okay, I don't want to gross you out or anything, but cramps can be really, really painful. And mine were actually particularly bad. And they're like, well, go on birth control. It will shield you from having to deal with the pain of having periods. And it turned out what the real problem was is I was malnourished, and I had no idea. I needed I needed more omega-3s. And as soon as I started taking omega-3s, the problem went away. And that's not something that doctors are saying. Instead, they're saying, well, take birth control, you don't have to deal with that. And that's not the that's not the only avenue. There's also, when you talk about like skincare and acne, that is another reason why doctors will hand out birth control, because they'll say, well, if you have this big acne problem, you just go on birth control. It's the hormones. It will balance out the hormones. And then the problem is, as soon as they get off of it, they get the acne back, because it is not the hormones, it's diet.
Yes.
And that is something that is not taught.
It's a shortcut, which is what most doctors prescribe.
It's a quick and easy solution that people like, and then they get hooked on birth control, and then they can't be without it, and then it causes sterility and a bunch of other issues.
Yeah, I'm seeing that. So the conclusion I've made about society in general is that people are going to do what people do, and they're going to self-sort, and there's nothing you can do to save them, which is why I like Christianity, because we don't have a duty to convert people that don't want to be converted. Our duty is actually just to spread the message. Let everybody know there's an option, and that's it. Just let them die. Let them kill themselves. There's one guy I knew who was really angry about underage surgeries of a certain type, and he was like, "We got to do something." And I said, "No, we don't. Like, people, like, what's the pagan deity that, like the Assyrian deity that they would sacrifice children to? Moloch?
Is it Ishtar? Moloch is one of them.
Moloch is one. Yeah, so I told him that Christians aren't there to stop people from sacrificing their own children to Moloch. There's nothing we can do. Just let them. It is what it is. So, and he was like, "Oh, that's a good point." I was like, "Yeah, dude, we're not here to save the world. It's that." So, but you can stake your claim and keep it. So, if you want to break here's some. I don't know if you know about Academic Agent, but he's got this concept called Boomer Truth. You ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So here's the Boomer Truth. Here's the First Amendment, which everyone says protects your rights. What is the active noun in this First Amendment? I don't know if you can see it or not.
I can see it. I'm reading it.
Sure. Yeah, who does this govern?
This governs Congress.
That's right. It does not govern my state house.
Yeah.
Missouri put an extermination order on all the Mormons. Like, there's no right to religious freedom there, because it was a state house.
Well, it used to be certain states were to particular religions too. I think Maryland was Catholic.
Correct. Maryland was Catholic. Anytime someone goes about being a trad cath, by the way, I always try to remind them which states are the Catholic states, and I ask them, how are those states doing right now? I'm like, yeah, and I usually give them a little bit of like, that Satan's going to target the most righteous among us, right? Whoever stands tallest will be hit hardest. That's how it goes. And I like make them, but I'm like, just don't get haughty with me. Don't get like, don't like, these trad guys are like so militant. I'm like, don't be militant. That's the opposite of what Christians are. We're kind of sneaky. We're sneaky. We're converting all of your. We're going to like the big pagan king's house, and we're working in the kitchen, and we're converting all of his staff. And now all of a sudden, we've converted his daughter's nanny, and now the nanny has now converted the daughter, and now all of the people inside of the house have just now it's a Christian kingdom now. Boom, we're done. And I'm just working in the kitchen. I'm just a nice guy working in the kitchen.
Yep.
You can kill me, and I'm going to sing your praises and say, God loves you, and I'll pray for you, and all that stuff. But
it used to be
just going to make us
Christianity
stronger.
with like a Hydra, where it's like you kill one guy and 3 guys pop up.
We're just so annoyingly nice. That's what you're supposed to be as a Christian. But if you live in a Christian state, we have the right to self-govern, and self-govern we shall. We will be happy to make a law respecting the establishment of religion. I don't want Scientology in my state. There's a lot of other religions I wouldn't like in my state either. We will
wokeness.
Say what?
Wokeness.
Yeah, exactly. I would ban language that starts saying that races are owed something to another race. That
DIE is a terrible god and it should be outlawed.
Yeah, I would totally outlaw it. I'd be happy to make a law in Tennessee State House that says that any institution, religious or corporate, shall be banned in the state of Tennessee from expressing that one race is aggrieved of or owes another race, and yada yada yada. It's like if it's even on an email you send your employees, we will seek restitution and recompense and just trash the fist of the righteous state onto you, because Christians are called to make a righteous state, and that's how Western civilization was founded. That's how it goes. So I'd be happy to, like, this First Amendment is for Congress. It's not for the State House. So when people say like, "Oh, what about my right to free speech?" It's like, it's a Tennessee law. Kiss my butt. Like, what about my exercising the free right? My religion of was it Black Hebrew?
Black Hebrew Israelites.
Yeah, the guys who are just like really angry. It's like, this is an angry religion that thinks that they've been aggrieved. Grievance religions. That's what I call them. Just grievance religions. Like, no, we're gonna limit that. You don't get to do that. All that stuff. Right to the free press. Oh, I'd love to just pound down on the press right now. It's like I'd just make the whole newspaper roll up if you start putting out attack pieces. We'll make a law that works well enough. It's like people who think the state can't do stuff have ignored thousands of years of good rule of states.
Well, like, there are rules I would put in place, but I don't think it would be the rules you were thinking. Like, if you had to issue a retraction, I would make a law that you have to put that front and center on your front page.
Yes, laws to the taste of its citizens, right? Like, I just hate the press, so I'm overly hyperbolic, as I usually am. But yeah, actually, that would be great. I'd be like, yes, absolutely. And I would have a score sheet for each journalist. So if you were a professional journalist, you were going to have to register with the state. It makes sense, right? If you had a institutional religion, if you had a religious institution, you'd have to register that with the state. Okay. All right. So if you're a journalist, you need to register with the state. We're going to have your name on file, and we're just going to keep a record of all of the court cases against you, all the motions against you, all the retractions you've made, and we're going to be able to see a score sheet, like a nice summary on the website of like, yeah, you've been basically telling lies, and I can just look that up and be like, yeah, your score is terrible, man.
Yeah,
like, what's
but
wrong
at
with that? Full transparency.
At the same time, I'm like, how much do I trust the state with that information?
I trust my state a lot. I trust my state quite a bit, actually, because it's Tennessee.
Yeah, it's
a state full of Christians.
Or any of the other ones, but
well, don't live there. F those states. Remember the Christian principle: you let Sodom burn. You have to let Sodom burn. So let them burn. I don't care. I'm not gonna. I would never, on principle, stop myself from self-governing a good, righteous state. Just because other states over there are doing poorly and can't govern themselves. That'd be like saying that, oh, dads shouldn't be allowed to spank because that dad over there spanks his kids way too much. I was like, no, I might need to spank my kid. Like, he's punching his sister in the face. Can I please, like, physically do something? Like, I'm
thinking at it from the angle of any law that can be exploited will be exploited in some metric. So it's like, I want to do things, or it's more dependent on the.
Just do it carefully.
Yeah, do it carefully. Like, that's why I say the newspaper should put retractions on the front and center instead of.
Well, now we're just
Yeah.
talking about the details, right?
Yeah,
And
I think
I'm
we're more
not in a
like-
position where I'm going to talk about the details very
Fair
like in a
enough.
serious manner. I'm just going to joke around about the details. But the idea is that you should be able to morally govern yourself, and states should have the ability to regulate the stuff that's listed in the First Amendment, which is considered like sacred, is not actually a limiting thing for us. So I would like, I don't want to hear. So one of the last one here is petition the government for a redress of grievances. Like, I don't want a bunch of certain people of an alphabetic persuasion to be in there getting a right to petition the government for a redress of grievances. It'd be nice if they just barred them from the state house. Like, these degenerates don't get a seat at the table. But no functioning state would allow that.
Yeah, I
Like,
think
if they want to do it, they can go to someplace
insane
other.
asylums.
Oh yeah. If they want to be in, if they want to be taken care of, I guess they can go into an asylum or something. We've got some penitentiaries that have been shut down. We can refurbish them and put them in there, and they'd be safely away from children.
Yep.
You know, the but anyways, yeah, you got to fight these stupid boomer truths, and America's going to eventually just fall apart completely. But not all the states will. So live in a good state, live in a state that values marriage and enforces marriage. It's like, oh man, if there's only an entity that would make sure that these marriages could be made and broken in a way that's, responsible. It's like, if there's some other, it's called your state government. That's supposed to be there to regulate. But I mean, marriage is a business contract. At the end of the day, it's a business contract that is made under God.
Yep.
It is. It has terms. It has conditions. It has ways of forming and dissolution and this. So who's going to regulate the business contract? Well, it's like family court is just another type of court.
Yep.
So make sure the laws are on your side, and if you're not in an area where the laws are on your side, then the laws are against you, and don't live there. Like, simple as. And as Luna said, it's really easy to move state.
Yep, not that hard.
It's like, yeah, go being a baby. These manosphere, oh, no fault divorce, she's gonna take everything. It's like, move to Tennessee. My wife couldn't leave me if she wanted to. She'd have to get me to sign an agreement that would make sure it's like fair, right? She can't just take half of my stuff and leave. And I can't. Actually, one of the funny things, one of the reasons that's given for being able to divorce is if they're impotent, which I think is very funny. Like, if she marries you and you're just shooting blanks, she's like, nope. Tennessee's like, see you, pal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's and it has to be like you were impotent at the time of marriage. And assuming that she just didn't know that, which is a type of fraud. So I like it that it's. By the way, I'll share my screen again. Let me pop this up here. Here's the actual Tennessee law, and I love this. You might, as a viewer of the Lotus Eaters, you might appreciate this as well. Which thick words are being used in this child establishing paternity?
The legal father, mother, child.
Boom. Father, mother. No partners. None of this they, thems, and such.
Yeah.
Mother and father. This is a paternity. Establishing paternity is about a mother and father. That's it. We don't care if you're. It's not a mother. It's not a father. We're not pulling a Buttigieg. Okay. Mother and father. That's it. It is in our laws. It is on the government website. We will continue to enforce a righteous lifestyle, and in so doing, repel all of the degenerate weirdos. Let me see if I can see if I have. Where is going on here? Oh, okay, there we go. Do I still leave that Reddit page up? Maybe I didn't. I didn't. Oh man, I had a Reddit page of someone who's complaining about our marriage equality law and be like, it's in the /Nashville subreddit. And he's like, I'm gonna leave the state. I'm like, mission accomplished. Get wrecked, loser. Get out of my state. Get out. Get out. Seriously, I would be okay with banning Daisy Duke shorts, unless it's on your own property. It's like, I don't want to go around seeing a bunch of thoughts doing thought stuff. This is a fine family state, okay? Mothers and fathers. Child. This isn't Guardian.
Dumb teenagers will dumb teenager, though, be honest.
Yeah, and they get trouble for it.
Yeah.
We don't let. The thing is, we're supposed to enforce consequences so that people learn. Because if we don't teach the children, with a little ride in the back of a car or a talking to from a scary police officer, they're just going to keep doing it. So it's like, when do people grow up? It's they grow up when they get consequences. So I'm like, this thing, by the way, Tennessee will hunt you down if you're a man and you leave your wife and don't pay your child support. Yeah, no, it's not like a man's state. Okay, this is not for the man's benefit. Everything is for the child's benefit. Everything's for the child's benefit. You know, so that's what a family is all about. And our state enforces family. It's not a man state. You're thinking of it being like if you're going around banging lots of ladies, you know, and being a hookup artist, or what was it called, pickup artist? Yeah, the paternity court's not going to like you. Lawyers get. I was talking to one girl who was getting a divorce. It was a righteous divorce. Her husband cheated on her, and was not redressing either. He was like nuts. He was a weirdo, not fit. I did ask her, why'd you marry him in the first place, and she gives the usual, like, oh, he was different. I was like, there wasn't like maybe if he got like a concussion and like changed personalities, I could buy that. But I'm like, nah, you need to take some responsibility for this too. You did not provide a good father for your children. But the state went after him pretty hard, and not only that, the lawyer had an affair with one of the judges in a surrounding county. When that lawyer was trying to get stuff working and represent her client, she was getting just like, the court just hated her for having done that.
Yeah.
There's a reason why women in Tennessee, like, you'll go into a Goodwill in Tennessee, and there's like 3 or 4 blonde girls working the cash registers, and they're all smiling and they're all happy and they're all nice. And that's because we've made a state that fosters family and takes care of people and makes sure that you behave yourself. Right? It's the reason why, like, places like San Francisco are turning into absolute S-holes, because there's no enforcement. So it's like, don't be afraid of enforcement. We enforce, again, like, what is a law? A law is a promise of violence to enforce social norms. Like, every law is that. I'm trying to, like, bust things down to the more fundamental level, but that's the effect that it always has. There's a social norm. There could be a law against having a pink house. Cops are going to go over and visit you for it, right? So, it's like, that social norms are good. Who else is going to enforce it? Well, the best thing you could do is a government that is run by you. And at the state level, that's actually pretty easy. Like, it's like our state. Let's see. Here's all of the paternity bills from last year. And not only that, here's how long the bill is. There it is. That's it. That's the bill.
That's not very long at all.
Yeah. Like, people can manage this.
Yeah.
This isn't, it is also funny. It's because go ahead.
I'm thinking about the pork bills. I'm like, we really need to stop doing that.
That's because, like, we do stuff on
the
federal level. Yeah, exactly. Like, I could go find this guy's house and probably embarrass him at the grocery store. Right? It's just, America's too big of a country to run. That's way.
Why a lot of it's supposed to be deferred to the states, and I think a lot of that got overturned.
14th Amendment.
I was going to say Civil War.
14th Amendment was made because of the Civil War.
Yeah.
The 13th Amendment was the one that banned slavery, but the 14th Amendment was the one that made it so federal law was above state law, took precedence. Yep. So that, and now every time a state wants to pass a law, it's got to go fight with the federal government.
Yep.
And that was the beginning, right? They used I don't know.
That's gonna say that's part of why I don't know a lot of what the Alabama laws are, is because a lot of them keep getting thrown in courts, and so I know some of them went to the Supreme Court with the gerrymandering and stuff, but there's other stuff too. So before the Roe versus Wade got overturned, I know there were some abortion laws that were passed in Alabama that they were like, you can't do. And now it's like, well, are those laws in effect now that Roe versus Wade has been overturned, or are they, have to be redone?
Tennessee is strangely resilient to federal pressure, and I'm not sure why. We are very inhospitable as a state to, if you're not of our ideological persuasion. I don't even know if I call it ideological. It's like sentimental persuasion.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't have the same sentiment as that, this is a hellish place to live. Like, I hear gunshots all the time. There's dead animals that are being shot and hunted. The police are kind of not really present unless there's a problem. People kind of do what they want to do. The neighbors here can be very inhospitable if they don't like you. Yeah, it's but if they do like you, then you're like one of them. And anytime some person from a blue state comes here, they want to leave, or they like live in Franklin, Tennessee, which is where they keep all of our blue staters. Apparently, well, Nashville is also a choked up mess. It's like a heart that wasn't developed properly, so it's like the person is now there's only a certain size that it can get to.
Yeah,
because it's just so choked infrastructure wise. I was like, good, keep it disorganized.
Huntsville, where I live is like that too, and it's a big like we're having that problem too because they keep trying to move feds into my state, and so
that's kind of what Huntsville is all about, right? Like it grew because of the space program and weapons programs.
And we don't have a lot of infrastructure, especially for what they're trying to do now. So there's issues with the water supply because we get water from springs, and so that's really that's not enough, and they can't take water from the rivers because the rivers are all bad, and they got to build water treatment plants. And then last year we had rolling blackouts, not because we didn't have power, but because they were afraid of power surges because there was not enough transformers for all of the new builds. Yeah, and they're afraid that everyone was going to turn on their heat and then it would blow the entire thing.
Wild. I was just looking around to see what. Oh, go ahead.
They just keep building. They just keep building, and they keep being like, "Move stuff here, and I'm just like, "Please stop. We need to build the infrastructure. There is no infrastructure. We need water treatment plants. We need more transformers. We need X, Y, and Z." It's and then we got all the Northerners.
Well, we don't around here. We don't. I mean, I think we're about to get internet where I'm at. I have to use Starlink. But apparently we got some federal money that says we can build fiber, so we're going to eat the federal money. Probably because there's no strings attached. But the state I'm in, Tennessee, I know doomers seem to think there's like this endless supply of blue people. And also, here's the thing I get about people is they conform to their conditions.
Yeah.
So you take a blue stater and you throw him on 10 acres of land, guarantee you he's going to be a Republican in about 2 years after he's like had to repave his driveway.
Well, he's going to have to.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole mentality that comes from living in rural states, and it's like you can't depend on your government, you have to depend on yourself.
Yeah, and you start finding out that you can do it yourself pretty easily. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
Like, I can what's going to happen? Who's going to fix this gravel roadway? It's like, well, there's a neighbor who has a dump truck that you can pay a few $100 to, and they'll just come and bring you a dump truck full of gravel. And if you pay him another couple $100, his son will come by with a little tool thing and spread it for you, or you do it yourself. It's not that hard, with a tamper drive, so I'm actually I like the fact that my state is I don't want it. So the thing is, you're saying like we need to work on infrastructure. I'm like, never update that infrastructure. F that infrastructure. Because that's where you get more coddled people coming in, is when your infrastructure is good. It's like, my infrastructure is I have IBC totes full of water and a natural spring in the backyard, and I get electricity, and what I'll do is I'll get some solar panels as a backup for the freezers, but more or less be able to live without electricity if I want to do. We have nuclear power plants in Tennessee, so that's kind of like what
we do in Huntsville
benefits.
Yeah, I think we also get energy from TVA, like all of the water.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, it turns out that the water that I get is city water, but it's actually just pumped down the road. There's a creek nearby that they filter, so it's managed by the city, but it's actually country water that's just centralized to the creek that's a mile from my house. I don't want the infrastructure to be I don't want I want America to be rugged and kind of crummy, because it makes it inhospitable for coddled people. Like, I want perpetual bad times, because I'd rather have the good men that come from it, and just the times just never get good. We're just gonna have we'll take the good men, and we'll keep the bad times, and we're just gonna stop the fourth turning from turning again, and we're just gonna accept bad times. Dirt floors and all that. It's not that bad. Like, we'll settle. But this constant march for progress, the constant need for good men to make good times, is what dooms the cycle to continue. But the good men are the only ones who can gain the awareness to stop the cycle and have the self-restraint and the discipline to stop the cycle. Like wanting more for your children than what you had might be a bad thing. It might be a bad thing. Maybe your children should have the exact same struggles that you had. Maybe that would be good for them.
Yes and no, because it's like, I like modern medicine. I like not dying for something stupid that you can cure.
Yeah, well, you make a wise decision. I'm not saying we should all like return and like work the fields. I'm just saying that at some point you have to say this is good enough. And that's what you're going to keep.
Human ambition, I don't think it's ever going to be good enough until Jesus comes back.
Well, that's the thing about the good men, right? The good men would have no, like, what I'm saying is that if you're a good man and you're a pillar of society, leave society. They don't deserve you. Don't help it. Go and make the times for yourself. Live out in the country like I do. It's not that hard. Because all you're going to do is make more weak people by helping people because they're weak. Like, don't help weak people. That's one of the things I've learned as a teacher when I've been, because I've run a nonprofit that, taught programming, is that you can't help weak people and you shouldn't. Now, if a person asks you for help, definitely help them. But someone who doesn't even, who's like, just like that sort of short, bald guy you're talking about, who's just too shy. It's like, you never give them a pity date. And I would never give them like a pity help, like for helping their career. It's like, because they haven't earned it. They haven't even they haven't mustered the courage to even ask me.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, at some point, the good men need to just shrug and say, like, we're going to leave it. We're going to leave it there. And we're not going to, like, we're going to take the things we like and we're going to leave the weak to it. Because the thing is, like, the weak these days are people who are weak in spirit. That's the weak I'm talking about. Not like the physically weak or anything. Like people who want to come. Anybody who wants on the ark can get on the ark. Right. But, the good men need to stay in control of that and determine where it's going to steer to. And no, we don't have to like give up modern medicine or other modern things, but we should give up some modern conveniences. We definitely should. I mean, I think the Amish have the right idea, maybe. Like, if they got injured, they'd go to a hospital, but other than that, they're not going to like be too reliant on modernity. Now they have their own problems, I'm sure. I'm sorry, go ahead.
You're phasing in and out.
Oh no, am I really?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
How much of that did you get?
Something about modern medicine is fine, but for the most part, hard times keep hard times.
Yeah, like, we just don't have the modern conveniences. Like, you shouldn't want to make we should not want to make our children's lives more convenient. They should continue to be fraught with labors. Now, sometimes there's like stuff that would be good to develop and pass on to them, but I don't think that and by the way, we as a society, like, it depends on which society, right? Like, what is society? Because my society in Tennessee is very different from someone who's in LA.
Yeah.
And I think my society, if I shrink it down to the people I actually interact with, I think we'd be more than happy to forego easy times, because that's what we do now. Like, it's not easy to live where I live necessarily. Like, it's easy for me because it's about attitude, right?
Well, I don't think we should be the rat experiments, where it's like where you have all these rats who do not build bonds, and I think that's one of the issues we're dealing with is people are not building bonds, and it's because food is relatively available, and then they can just do what they want, and it causes a lot of social issues when we're not working together.
Yeah, there's no like, I will say that we should have harsher lives, and people will immediately go to like, well, we're gonna starve. Alex wants us to starve. Like, no, I don't. I want you to grow your own food, though. Like, well, what if I don't grow?
Like, yeah, I think we need to go back to. Okay, they talk about the issues with fertilizer, and fertilizer, of course, causes plants to grow rapidly, but they're not as nutritious. And so they think part of the reason why a lot of people are overweight is because of the nutrition deficiency in a lot of what we eat. And so if we go back to farming for ourselves and then we find a way to grow food that it doesn't strip the soil and doesn't cause a lot of these issues, I think we'll live a lot healthier.
That's true. That's definitely true. I mean, and the thing is, like, the commercial farms, if you look at the scale that they work at, they cannot expend human labor to grow their food. unless they absolutely have to. It's just too much. Because if you're going to do something on 1 acre, you're going to have to do it on all 1,000 acres.
Yeah.
So what they do instead is they just saturate it with whatever chemicals and stuff, and they have a schedule because the schedule has to work every time because different seasons yield different results.
Yeah.
So one season I'll have Japanese beetles like crazy, and another season I might not. Or in one part of the field I got this going on, and the other part of the field I have that going on. Well, even that level of tailoring and targeting of these different things is too much labor for a factory farm to expend. So they just do it all the time. Typically, is what my understanding. Now, of course, that has drawbacks. Like I grow my own food; it is better. I am healthier. I have a cow that I had slaughtered. Jim Davis was the guy who slaughtered it, or he's the one who raised the cow. And I went to the slaughterhouse, picked up my meat, and I know exactly where my cow came from. I have sheep. I slaughter my own sheep. I grow a good amount of my own food. I mean, obviously, I buy stuff too, but it's not a lot.
Yeah.
It is better, but even just from the labor standpoint, like the fact that to me, food isn't just, I walk into a building with some money and I walk out and my belly's full. Like I know what it's like to have to work hard. I would even recommend people just cooking for themselves. I mean, do you ever see that Twitter post a little while ago where a guy spent $25,000 on DoorDash?
Why? Why would you do that?
He's easy. He's a coomer. It's easy.
Yeah.
It's pleasure. No hardship ever.
Well, the thing is, I get my food from a farm, or a lot of my food from a farmer's market, and I do like the fact that I can talk to who grows my food and I know them, and I can ask them questions. Because a lot of times when you go to the grocery store, they say, "Oh, this doesn't have antibiotics in it," and then they'll have like a little asterisk, and then they'll actually put antibiotics in it, but because they put the little asterisk and whatever
Oh
legal
yeah.
at the bottom, they get away with it.
Yeah, there's no sentiment there. It's all legality. So when you live in a society that has when your immediate society and community have no shared sentiment, you have to fall back to legalities, and that's where it's like every law gets exploited. Everything is essentially you become like a old Hebrew. So the Hebrews believe that if God made a law that had a loophole in it, God makes perfect laws, and therefore it's okay to exploit the loophole. And that's what is that God put that in there for a reason. So you'll see like tons of people exploiting loopholes in that faith. Probably reason why a lot of them are lawyers. And it's
what is it? Jesus says like the heart of the law will be put upon their hearts.
And that's why I'm a Christian supremacist, because it's like we know when we're cheating and we don't do it. Like we know, so we have a sentiment.
Better.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, if you read the Old Testament, I don't get the impression that God really much cared for those people. Like, oh, we're the chosen people. We're chosen. Great. Like sometimes being chosen isn't the best thing in the world. Because
I felt like God had to punish them by giving them exactly what they wanted a lot.
I don't know if you ever read Isaiah, but chapter 1 of Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah is telling the Hebrew people that God doesn't listen to your prayers and doesn't care anymore and is going to destroy all of you and enslave you all. It's
I read Jeremiah, and Jeremiah was not what I expected, and I felt so bad for God.
No, God has to put up with these. People ask me like, "Oh, don't you think God was so different in the Old Testament?" I was like, "Yeah, because did you see who God had to work with?" I don't know. People don't usually talk about the end of Noah's Ark, right? That story took a turn at the end. It's like God's like, "Oh, come on!" It's like I do so much for you idiots, and you can't even do a single thing. Just stop doing that stuff. It's like, oh no, I've interpreted the law to be that. It's like, yeah, exactly. So so we get these legalistic things with your food, and you let people like that handle it. It's like, yeah, of course. And I don't know the exact cause of like all the obesity. But most of the health problems and obesity, I think, are a lot of perverted incentives from the corporate level, which then lobbies the government and creates, the corporations and the government also create tons of scientific papers that are total bunk to let them get away with whatever. And notice this with modern science too, is they don't care about the truth. They don't care about the truth at all. Like everyone's just trying to get away with stuff.
And a lot of it's like signs of a corrupt society, and our society is falling apart, and it's not good.
And that's what I'm saying. Good men don't save it. Don't save her. She don't want to be saved. Don't save her. She don't want to be saved. Don't save her. You don't save her. Don't save her at all. Don't save the society. You can't save women either. You can't save men. You can't save anybody unless they come to you and say, I want to be saved. Like that, let one act of humility. I would cross continents to help someone who asked me for help. If after I interrogated them a bit and I saw that it was genuine. Right? But the thing I find most repugnant and annoying about so many people who I try to help is that they don't want to be helped. They want me to tell them the thing they want to hear. So I'll be talking to some
for the most part, but then it's like in my head when you say these things, the first things that come to mind is like, yeah, you should probably do something. Like I keep thinking of like the subway where the one woman got, assaulted and no one did anything. And I'm like, someone
tried to help her.
But also I know the government in those places is hellish.
Yeah, somebody tried to help her. It's called every single Republican institution and conservative media institution that was saying get the hell out of those cities. But she didn't listen to it with her incredible pride and her shiftlessness and haughtiness. She ignored and probably took part in demonizing half the country that was trying to help her. And she got what she got. Like we're not here to judge individual justice here, right? Like the wicked people of Sodom are not savable. It's like you can't save them. You can't save them. You have to. And God says this over and over in the Bible. Like the Bible is not the book you want to read. It is the book that was given to us. And our charter is not to save these people. That is actually us taking morality into our own hands, which never goes well. And people try to stretch the meaning of the Bible too. It's like, oh, what about your neighbor? It's like, she's not my neighbor. She doesn't live near me. I don't know who she is. She's a stranger to me. One of the ways that you end up in hell, if you remember your parables, is God just not knowing you. Like, I don't know you. Who are you? Why are you? I'm not going to let you into my feast. I don't know who you are. Like, this lady doesn't know us. She's not my neighbor. My neighbor lives next door to me. I don't think neighbor had any other meaning than the people who are in my immediate vicinity. That's who I love. That's who I care about. Everybody else is living the life that they're going to live, right? Like, people are free to move. Feel free to move about your country.
I feel different ways because it's like there are some things that we should do on principle as Christians, and it's sort of like to some degree, it's like I can't turn a blind eye to things that are happening around me. And part of that is, to be a good person is to behave virtuously. And I understand that I have limits. There are things I can and cannot do. But
what did God say what did God say to do when the angels led Lot and his family out of Sodom?
Well, they took care of it. Like, they told him to turn and run, and then the one looked back and the wife looked back and she turned to a pillar of salt. But at the same time, it's like it's like you shouldn't turn a blind eye to evil, because
I'm not. I can't see evil at all. It's all on my TV screen and my computer. Just turn that off. Like, I don't have to see all the evil. Like, I have a Palantir here, and I can put my hand on it and see all the evil in the world all the time. I could do that. I mean, should I watch all of the evil all the time? I'm sure there's some evil in the Philippines right now, maybe in Rio de Janeiro. Those places are about as close to me as New York City.
Yeah.
As far as my heart is. Like, why would my heart be with a bunch of people that don't believe in Jesus and don't care about me and don't know me? The overabundance of compassion will be your doom. Always. You cannot give your heart to, and you have no duty either. Like, you explicitly don't have a duty. Like, find me in the Bible somewhere where it's like you're supposed to go to, every time God tells you to go and reach people, it's just to spread the message.
Because I keep thinking about this. I'm just like, to some degree, it's like part of it is the actions we do. And I think it is very different times we live in where everything is available to your vision, and there are things we cannot do at the distance we are at. And, we can just do the things around us. But when they are around us, I feel like if you can do something, you shouldn't. And it's a sign of the rot of our society that good men will not do what is right and just.
C.S. Lewis had a really good point about this in the Screw Tape Letters. You ever read that or heard of it?
I've heard of it. I haven't read it yet.
It's a good little like fanfic about how demons would probably think to corrupt people, good people. And one of them is making good people care about causes that are far away from home.
Yeah. So, like, I know we can't save the world, but we can do little things to help make it better.
And with my neighbors, as commanded by God, not to New York City. Good men, leave and find your people. Like, good men should leave. They should get new neighbors. Like, these neighbors don't want to be saved. Like, it's like you've got all of these. How do I put it? During Acts, the apostles didn't pursue people. They would just preach and let people congregate. And Peter labeled others as evil. The people who rejected them, they're evil.
Yeah.
Straight up. Like, we are not supposed to convert evil people. Pearls before swine and all that. And these people are willing participants in an evil community, an evil society where they are. Like, how can you separate them? I can't. That woman who was being violated and the man who was doing the violating are in the same tribe. There's nothing I can do. I couldn't. Do you think she would listen to me if I told her to get out of here and leave before something like this happened? People have been telling her how could she not know? She lives here. How could she? Why wasn't she on the news talking to people about other incidents where this had happened? Where was her protest before? Is it only a protest, a bad thing when it happens to her? I guarantee you she saw tons of stuff. Every one of these New Yorkers, like especially these guys who are on public transit, they see stuff all the time. Like, if you want to find a group of people that fail to act in the face of evil, it's all of them. But we're not here to convert evils. Like, we can't, because we actually cannot. So yes, good men, I say, fail to act when you do not save the wicked. Even God can't save the wicked. Even God cannot do it. We're not failing to act. We're leaving. We're getting on the boat. We're getting on the ark. Leave. Go. Like, there's no time in history where God was like, I'm going to send you to save the people. He would usually send somebody to spread the message. And sometimes they get really frustrated. Okay. Sometimes they'd be really successful. It depends on the people. It's all about the people. We have no power in it. And they are getting the message. They know what's going on and that they still continue to bed with evil. I don't understand it, and I never will. And I'd say, men, you've not failed to act. You've chosen the righteous path of being with your people. Like, protect them. The strong men a strong man who's getting thrown into jail in New York City for doing the right thing could have been one strong man who was out in Tennessee or a good state being a good man. We lost a good man. Nothing was gained from helping these people. Nothing is gained from ever helping these people. Spread the message and then get out. That is exactly what Jesus said to the apostles. As soon as people stop listening to you, dust your sandals and leave. I know it's not romantic, it's not sexy, it's not like but we're not saviors. Even Jesus couldn't convert those people. There's a lot of people that rejected Jesus. A lot of people. He didn't pursue them. Why should you? Why are we expecting men to do things that Jesus and God can't do? I bet she still lives there.
Yeah, probably.
The Sodomites are in Sodom, where they belong. I don't know. This is God's. The thing is, I said before, trust is when you put your own feelings away and you put your faith in something else, in another power, knowing that things will be better. And this is one of those things where it's like, yes, we have to put our feelings away. Because I used to feel bad about this stuff too. Like, I ran a nonprofit that helped in Baltimore City.
Yeah.
How many people did I help? 0. How many years was I there? 4. I was teaching like skills that would get them a 6-figure salary, and nobody would even show up. And I would go door to door. I almost got shot. So that was a good lesson from God about like what happens when you try and save a people that don't want to be saved. So I know Luna wants to send you to your death and life imprisonment to help this lady. That's what you're doing. Do you realize that? And these men's lives, that's happened to that fella named Perry.
Like, I know what happened with
I know
Perry.
it
I
makes you
really
feel.
disagree with that, and I know
I
that's a
know it
lot
makes you feel
harsh,
bad.
but
I know stuff makes you ladies feel bad, but you got to try and like think a little bit before you send us men to our deaths. I know, like
I'm not
for
trying to send you
England,
guys to your death.
I know you're not trying to do that. It's the same thing as the White Feather Society wasn't trying to send tens of thousands of Englishmen to their death in the trenches, but they were.
I'm just thinking of the
Would you?
principle of the matter,
The
you
principle
know?
does
It's
do.
like it gets into what is the right thing, and to some degree, it's like, these things are never easy, but
I mean,
it
they are if you accept the word. I've
it
accepted it. It's not our responsibility. Like there was never an instance where a wicked person was saved by Jesus or
yeah,
anyone
but that
in the
almost
Bible.
kills you to not do the right thing if it is happening in front of you. Like, so that
Yeah,
man could be stuck in
don't let it be
prison,
in
but
front of
his
you.
soul is saved.
I'm sorry, what? Sorry, I
So
interrupted
so
there.
Perry, like, by doing the right thing, by holding the guy on the subway down and preventing him from hurting anybody else, like, he may be suffering in prison, but at least his soul is saved, like, who he is as a person.
He's a sinner like the rest of us. His
I
soul
know.
is in the same state as the rest of us. His soul is no shinier for what he did.
No, I kinda disagree
I don't
with
even know
that
if he's a
because
Christian.
what?
I don't even know if he's a Christian.
I think he was a Christian. I think he was visiting, so he was not there long term. So he was an outsider who was going in for something, I believe.
Man, you go into Sodom, you're gonna get Sodom results, man. Like, why would you? It's like entering the lion's den. Like, why would you do it? I mean, okay, so also remember that Jesus told forget oh shoot, who did he tell it to? On the night of the Last Supper, he says, you're gonna have to be as clever as a snake to his
Blanking.
apostles. I'm sorry, what?
Was it, clever snakes, wise as sorry, wise as serpents, gentle as doves, is what I've heard the
Correct.
saying is.
Correct. Yeah. So that was not very wise for him to be there. Hopefully people learn from that. So he's a good learning. I'll tell you, I didn't need him to do that for me to know that. And I don't think anybody who's in the know needed him to do that for us to all to know that. But and a second lesson is nice. But what I'm saying is that Christian men have no duty to enter Sodom. If it's right in front of you, why are you there? If that was happening right in front of me, I'd probably do something, but I would never be there because and every day I'm in prison. Every day I've deprived my wife of a husband. Every day I've deprived my father of a son in that prison because I did something stupid and went to New York City to go visit. I'd curse myself for doing that. It was stupid. It was very stupid. Why would a good Christian man go to Sodom? I know there weren't any Christians in Sodom, but you get my drift. Like,
Yeah.
you're not supposed to be there? Like, that's another thing that Christ's message teaches you. Why are you there? Why are you in this wicked place and unprepared? You're not as wise as a serpent. And I mean, it's also it's a foreign land. You're in a foreign country with foreign laws. Like if I was visiting, okay, let's say I'm visiting Indonesia and someone's getting caned by the local village elder. It happens sometimes. And the caning is real bad because it's happening to an 8-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Should I stop it?
Well, no, because it's the law of the land, and that's, a different place, and it's not as if he didn't know.
Being raped on the subway is the law of the land in New York City right now. By the act of the law, you could say that it's not written. Not all laws are written. In fact, like this caning example, it's not a written law.
I want to say you're wrong.
You know,
I
I'm
really
right.
do. Like, principally, it's
Don't think. What is a principle? What is it? Do those principles serve men well? Or okay, let me ask this: who were those principles serving, and where do those principles come from? Because I've been citing the Bible like left, right, and center. Because I have no faith. I have no faith in me. I've failed. I had a rocky part in my marriage, and that taught me that I am not in control. And how I feel about things, I need to be a husband first. I'm a child of God first. I'm a Christian first, right? Husband second, which is part of being a Christian. So I get to like two birds, one stone, right? Makes it easy. After that, it's like nothing else. I'm not competent. I've not been called in any sort of competency in any sort of way to be anything else. I just make money and I enjoy my time huckleberry finning it, barefoot by the pond fishing, and spending time with my wife, making songs like Tom Bombadil. Am I supposed to deprive my wife of probably another 60 years of that to stop some woman who is succumbing a victim of her society far away? If that's what your principles dictate,
I kind of want to say yes.
if that's what your principles dictate, then those principles are bad. And I would like to know where those principles came from. Because if they came from your feelings, I will then remind everyone that I don't believe women should have moral authority.
Well, no, that's
because they'll see a sad thing and then send you.
It's a reflection of the type of person that you are, that you would watch something so evil and do nothing.
God is my judge, and I've been told to dust my sandals off and leave. Like I'm trying to think of a script. Can you think of any scriptural example where someone goes into a wicked city and saves a wicked people? Usually, you just find the good ones and get them the hell out of there.
I
Like,
can. It's an
which
entire book
ones?
of the Bible.
Okay, which one is it?
Jonah.
Jonah went there and saved people who wanted to hear his message. Actually, Jonah was the one who didn't want to spread it. He was trying to duck out of work, and
Yeah,
God was like, "No, you got to go. You got to go," because they're not. Yeah, they're not. They're not a wicked. They accepted the word though.
Yeah, but it's supposed to be a parody of the inverse of what you know. Anyway, but still, it was a wicked city, and because he had preached and they listened to him, that it was overturned and they returned to God.
If I preached that in New York City, would that go like Nineveh?
I don't know.
It wouldn't, because people do that all the time, and it doesn't work. Everybody knows. Everybody knows the message is all over the place. Like people can access it. There are churches, and there are actually Christians in New York for some reason. I don't know why. Hopefully they're not using public transport. But New York has been duly notified. Like good people are continuing to act, and wicked people continue to live with wicked people.
Yeah.
So no, I don't. I reject that example because the people of Nineveh accepted the word of God. They accepted the warnings.
But
how you can't save a proud soul. Like God can't save proud people who don't want to listen. What I'm saying is that these New Yorkers don't want to listen, and I know they don't want to listen. And I'm saying specifically that woman who was a victim didn't want to listen, because I guarantee you someone had told her. Like if she's got eyes, she could see stuff. Like she actually lives there. I don't live there, and I know how bad it is.
Yeah, that's true. But
why would you subject yourself to that? Why would she subject her family to that? They know. They are vis-a-vis, they are wicked people. Why would you choose to live in a city like that? It's like me living in that village I was talking about where the 8-year-old getting caned. Like I wouldn't want to live near that.
Well, I wouldn't either, but
and we don't. It's like don't be near why would you live and visit near wicked people? Like she's succumbing to the law of her land. The law of the land is that people of a certain race can do whatever they want. They are the golden righteous people and they can do no wrong. Why would you be there? why would you stop it? I mean, I could go to other continents and see the same behavior. Why is New York any different? What I'm saying is it's a mistake to have been there. And he has now deprived his family of himself for a very long time. For probably nothing. Probably nothing. So should he have acted?
I still want to say yes.
I would think that you'd be an evil person to tell him that he has to act.
All right. I guess I'm evil then.
Yes, you are. See, the thing is, ladies don't realize they're evil, but they'll send a guy to his death because she judges him not righteous. I would not. The thing is, it is kind of the law of the land over there. That is kind of how things are there.
Anyway, it's getting to be 9. I think I need to go.
No worries. All right, Luna, I will see you around.
All right. Well, you take care.
You take care. Bye.